Hello everybody, my name is Naya and I'm the Black female engineer, and today is a very fun special day because we are going to be developing our first site, our first page using only HTML and CSS. And to make things even more exciting, we're actually going to be coding out a replica of one of Wix's websites, because Wix, is a platform for people trying to create websites for their businesses and things like that. And so, they have a whole team of developers to create these templates for you guys. And so, I wanted to show that with just HTML and CSS, we can do just what they are doing. And so we'll be coding that out. And every single link you will need for this tutorial is in the description box below, so make sure you check that out. It will specifically have the images we'll be using and a link to one of the code snippets we'll be using as well. And so make sure you check that out. So let's see it. So we are starting right from the beginning, everybody. So we have our index.html file and our style.css file. So just so y'all can get excited about what you're going to create, we are creating basically a dupe of one of Wix's templates for websites. And so this is the template they have, and we're going to recreate this. We're only going to do this first half because it kind of goes down a ways, but so we're just going to do this first half of that. But let's get to it. So the very first thing you have to do is declare the Doctype. And in this situation, it is HTML, because that's the way of the game. But we also have to declare the language, which is English. Then that'll go all the way down there. Then we need to create the head tag, which is really all the information needed by your browser to convert everything properly, to convert your HTML properly. So we need to say what character set is being used, which is UTF-8. We also need to link to our CSS, and so link CSS, and then by pressing tab, then we have all of that there. So the href is linking to style.css, and that is the name that I chose for our file because I knew that that would be the default. If your CSS named something differently, then you'll just have to change that in here into flower.css or anything like that. And then finally, we need the title tag, which is what the browser will be named. And so let's say Wix imitation. So very first thing that you should do, though, is now that the CSS is linked, we need to make sure that the link worked. And so we do this, hold on, before I get there, let me make sure we have our body, because it's going to be affected by that. So we do this by saying something like body and then changing the background color. So background color red. If our links work correctly, then boom, it is red now. And so let's make sure, let's really double check. Yellow, boom. So whether you started, developing 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago, always do these smoke tests to make sure everything is linked properly. If we had a JavaScript file, we would also do this with JavaScript, console logging a message and checking that message appeared in the browser. But, that's neither here nor there because that's not what we're doing right now. And so let's look at the website we're trying to imitate. So it is divided into different sections. So let's call this section 1, which has more the title of the company. Section 2, which has more about what the company is about. And then section 3, which has its own 3 little sections, kind of like a contact us kind of thing, social media, learn more, all that. So let's make sure we have those in here. So we need to name a class, and so let's just call this section 1 for simplicity purposes. And then do another div. So div is, yes, how we define our sections. And then we provide class names and, ID names to make grabbing these elements easier later on when we are trying to style them and all of that. Let's say additional info. Boom. Okay, so now let's go back into section 1. It looks like we have the title of the company, a subtitle, and then a little tiny description. So titles are typically H1s, and let's say our title will be the next great engineer. Then our H2, our business will be software engineering. And then in H3, we can say solving today's problems with, let's just make it all caps, with tomorrow's technology. Boom. Let's make sure that shows up. Boom. Okay. I'm going to say boom a lot. I do this when I work too, y'all. So then in the who we are section, it looks like there's this box right here with, a little header here and then more information about the company. And so because it has a little text box of its own, let's create another div. And we'll call it intro because, looks like they're introducing themselves there. And so we'll have the H2 and we'll say we are developers driven by the want to see everlasting change. And then the other portion was more of a paragraph. Now I can't think of a paragraph on the top of my head, so I'm just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to just indent this a different way, just so we can really see the separation of the paragraphs better. And so now that is our second section done. And if we refresh, boom, there it is. So I'm going to now go into that last section. So that last section, remember y'all, it had 3 different sections of its own. So we're going to create 3 more divs. And so we'll say work, and then the next one will be social media, social-media, no spaces, y'all. And then the last one, let's say visit us. Okay. So now let me give you all a second to catch up. Ooh, I say I'll catch up, then I scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay, so now let's refresh this. Oh, but no text was added. But speaking of text, it looks like each section has its own little box over here. And so let's create 3 more divs inside the divs we just created. And so the work one will have a div class equals, let's just make them all just titled. We won't put too much information in them. And so because they're all the same, well, because we want them to all be formatted the same, ooh, I cannot spell title, I'll have the class names named the same way. That way styling is just so much easier. Title. There. And so the title for the first section will be our work. Then the title for the second section will be social media. Then lastly, H3 is visit us. So that's really it, everybody. Like, as for HTML, this is really all we need to do. So I'm going to give y'all a second to catch up again. So now it is time to style. So I went from index to style.css. So let's take out this portion because, we don't want to be blinded by our work today. But okay, first thing we need to do, we need to apply a Myers reset. So let me go in here, Myers reset. Ooh, there we go. And the link is within the description box. But we're going to copy and paste all of this first in our CSS. Because what happens is the browser automatically formats things you did in HTML for you. And so we want to undo all of those changes so that we have full control when we are styling. And so I like to add a comment saying end of Myers reset, just so I know where my code starts and where theirs ended. And so a comment is created by this slash and star, and then say anything you want, and then star and slash. Then that's how you end the comments. Then you can start coding. I used the shortcut of command question mark or the command, slash. I'm not sure what I think you can do control. The control question mark is how you do the exact same thing in Windows. I'll have shortcuts linked below as well. So let's get into the CSS, y'all. So let's refresh this. Yep, you see how the Myers reset took away all the previous fonting and everything, the font sizes and all that. Yep, that is why we need that. So let's say we have the section 1, and let's style that first. Oh, no, just put section 1. So every time we have a class in CSS, we select it by putting a period first. So whenever I put a class here to style it, I would put period, then what I named it. This tells CSS that we're grabbing stuff from, index.html. And so what we're going to do is set it at a height of like 1000 pixels. Then let's have, for now, the background color be black, just so we can see some division there. Let's have the text align in the center. And let's see how all of that did. Refresh, and boom. The color of our text needs to be white so we can see it. So now let's check, and boom, you see that? You see that? And then everything else is on the bottom. Okay, so let's create some margins so that everything is contained in a certain area. So we'll have the margins be of the entire body of our browser. The body is literally just everything, every section, every single thing. So, and I'll show you why in a second. But if we go to index.html, see, everything we put is within the body. So CSS is no different. So when we say margin, if we refresh, now on the top is 20 pixels and on the sides is 20 pixels. Okay. So now let's see. Let's have a padding on the top of about 20%. So we want the text to move down about 20%. Okay, there we go. Because if we see back in this browser, see, this text wasn't all the way up here. And, you know, do you see how the margin looks about the same? Same here. Here's the margin, and then the text is a little ways down. And so now let's make sure we change the size of each of the headers within section 1. And so because we want to change the headers to in specifically section 1, this is how we say that. Because if I put something like font size up here, then everything in section 1 is changed to the exact same font size, but we don't want that. So font size, let's say 90px, then section 1h2, let's have that be, let's say 50px. And then section 1h3, let's have it be 35. Font size of 35px. Now, let's see how that looks. Boom! See that? We are getting it together. Okay, now let's do more or less the same thing to everything else. We'll worry about the more specific items later. So now let's go into section 2, aka who are we? So let's scroll down. So let's have it so that the height is also 1000px. Then let's make the color white so we can really see where the last section ended and where the new one begins. Let's see. Let's see how that looks like for now. Okay, you see that? There it is. The height looks quite small though. What did I say? Oh, I said 100. 1000. Boom. See that? 1000px. And so now let's style the intro. If you remember, the intro was where we, introduced ourselves as a company. Color is black. Let's see. There we are. I was like, why can we not see it? Okay, let's make the color black. Let's make it so that it floats to the right. Because if you saw here, remember how everything was on the right-hand side? So let's make it so that the same applies here. And the width goes all the way across the page. So let's change the width to 40%. So it's 40% of the page. And float to the right. Okay, now let's check. And there it is. Okay, perfect. Now the intro had its own items. It had an H2 and a paragraph. So just like how in section 1, we're going to specifically target those elements. We're going to make it so that it starts a little bit down the page and it's not sticking up to the top like it was. We'll make the font size nice, generous, 50. And let's for now see. Okay, see how everything went down? That's because we changed the margin. And okay, things look pretty good there. So let's do the same with the paragraph. Intro, we need the period. Intro P, margin dash top, let's say 20px, so it's not sticking to that header. Font size will be a little smaller since it's, more text. And then let's add text shadows to all of these, just so things pop out of the page a little more. So we'll make the color black, and I'll copy and paste it so that this applies to the header as well. So let me give you all a few seconds to catch up. Now let's refresh, and there it is. Okay, it's really out there, but we'll get more into it soon. So this is section 1, section 2. And you know what? Let's move this, because you see how this is sticking all the way to the right? Let's move that a little more to the left. So padding right will be 13%. Do you see what I did? I went back to the general intro section and added this tiling right here. Padding makes it so that things move without changing the margin. Margin is for the outer section. Here, you'll see it better here. Margin is for the outer section, and then padding is for the inside section, like here. And so if we refresh, you see how it moved? Yeah, okay, that's better. Because here, you see how, yeah, it's a little bit more inside. It's not center, which is why I didn't make it center. That's why I manipulated the padding instead. Okay, and now we have our last section, which is going to look more like this. Okay. So now let's create that last section, which we named additional info. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page. That is this div right here. So we had the overall div for the third section, but then in the third section, there were 3 other rectangles in there, and then each rectangle had its own little box within it. So this one is going to, have more layers than the other ones. So we named it additional info. Right here. Additional info. And so, let's see. First, let's keep this here for now, because if I do this now, it won't make sense. So let's keep this here, and let's go to the other 3 sections, which was titled the work section. You see that? Classes work. Then social media, then visit us. So let's go in there instead. So we're going to have it so that all of these things have similar styling. And so I am selecting all of them at once instead of repeating things. So by doing this, we are selecting everything at once. So let's have it so that the width of each box is 33% of the page. Because if you remember here, you see that? They were all pretty equal. So the width is, yeah, it's right here. So let's make it 33% of the page. We're using percent so we're sure it's equal sizing and everything. And we don't have to go into the specifics of the exact pixels for the size. With height, we will be specific. Let's say about 600 pixels. And then let's create a margin so that it doesn't stick to the section above it, which was section 2. So let's say 10px, which is responsible for the top part of the margin, and then 5px is the sides. So making sure things don't stick to each other. We'll make it so that each of the text is all aligned in the center. So text align center. And what's next? Let's make the font size. Ooh, my goodness. Font size. Let's make it a slightly generous 35 pixels. The color of the text will be white. And let's see what this looks like. So go back in here and refresh. Let's make the background color something. Just so we are clear. Let's just make it teal. Just so we're clear where we are. Okay, so we see how the 3 sections were created. But do you see how they're stacked on top of each other? Yeah, we can't be having that. And so what we're going to do is add this property called display flex. Justify content center. Let me double check. Hold on. Oh, you know what I'm missing, everybody? Here. Remember I said that this wouldn't make sense yet? Yeah, that's why. So display flex, and then again, justify content center. So let's refresh. There it is. You see that? So the reason we had to put it in here as well, these items, the work, social media, and visit us, they belong in this section. And so we put display flex and justify content in this section because we're saying everything else that's in here, yeah, make sure that everything's lined up. If it fits, that's what display flex is. And then justify content, make sure that everything is centered. That's why when I put it in here, the titles moved to the center. But then if I put it in here, then each individual div is moved to the center and is side by side. So let's look at it again. These are our three sections: the next great engineer, the info, and the like contact us, kind of page. So this is very exciting. We're really seeing headway. And so now let's fix the styling of the titles within these rectangles a little bit because they need to be a bit further down. So dot title, let's have margin dash top be 50%. So this is going to move it about 50% down. Let's have the height of the title part. Let's make it so it creates its own little box with a height of 90 pixels and a width of about 80% of the size. Let's make the little boxes background color be black, and then the color of the text be white. So if we see what that looks like, see that? So we created little boxes within these large rectangles with a height of 90, width of about, was it 80%? And then the color inside is white. So we go back over here and let's make sure we justify the content to be centered. I'll display flex. There we are. We need the display flex for this portion because we're saying now everything within the rectangle. Let's make sure it's, I like to say let's make sure it's flexible, you know what I mean? So display flexible, and then now let's have it so that the content is centered. Now that you're flexible, be center. So let me give you all time to catch up. Okay, now very quickly, we're going to add a little part here where we make it so that the title isn't sticking to the top. So we're just going to add the padding again, title of H3, padding of 30 pixels. And if we refresh, boom, now it's not sticking to the top anymore. So here is the basic outline we have now. So kind of like, we're technically kind of like, there in terms of formatting. Now, let's add the cool features and the cool images to make it really nice and clean. So you see how like when you scroll into this Wix site, things look all like they're floating and things are crisp and everything. Yes, let's add that. So we're bringing it all the way back up to the top, y'all. So let's go back up here. And do you see why I like the comment of end of Myers reset? Because I know where I was at now. So looking at, let's start right at section 1, right over here. So let's add a background image instead of just a color. So background dot dash image. And if you pick up the link I posted in the description, just add that here. So background image is going to be a URL. And then you're going to put the quotes and then just paste the link in there. Okay, so background image colon URL, and then there's going to be parentheses and then quotes, and then you put the link. And so if you go back into your page, you refresh, boom, doesn't that look pretty? Boom, we're gonna make this more readable soon. But yeah, so I used this site called Unsplash to get these images. So Unsplash is great. This sounds like, an ad, but this isn't. I'm really just trying to teach y'all. This site is great because it provides images that are just so high quality, high resolution, and they're completely free for use. You can add them to your own actual apps and videos and everything, and you would have no consequences at all for not linking them or anything like that. So if we even, let's say, like search restaurant, you see how like nice these pictures are, and they're always like such large pictures so that they're not blurry once you add them in. It's blurry to load but not to add them in or anything. So really recommend this, and I've linked Unsplash below as well. But so all the pictures here are from Unsplash. And so what you do once you find a picture you like, you click on it, and you can either download it or open image in new tab and then copy the link. That's what I did because we're just doing a quick, tutorial, but in other cases I would have downloaded it. So no, really recommend. And so anyway, to make this more readable, let's add a text shadow to what we wrote in there. So it'll be -2, then something like this. And let's see what happens when we refresh. See how that's a lot easier to read? It pops off the page more. So definitely recommend adding text shadows when possible. So then, oh, well, okay, this is important. So you see how with Wix, when we scroll, it has this floaty effect. It's because the image itself isn't moving. It's because it's the text that's moving. And so here, the image is moving. You see that? And so we wanted to have it so that only the text is moving. So let's add this series of code here so that it looks like that. So background attachment, it's fixed. We want it fixed to the page. Background position, center, just center everything. Background repeat, it's there because if, let's say, a certain image doesn't actually fit the page, what CSS will do is basically repeat the image over and over again in the browser, but we don't want to do that. We're saying if it doesn't fit, that's fine, don't repeat it. And then with background size, we're saying to cover the entire container, in this case, the entire div. And so let's look at what that did. You see that? Cool, right? Right? So now it has that floaty effect, like the Wix site. It has that same float-like feel. So we're going to add the same thing in the second section. But first, let's fix our font. So let's make the font family be more of like a sans serif. That's also kind of basic, but I think fonts is like the thing I'm like most lacking in. I'll get better. Let's say letter spacing. So let's make sure each letter in the titles is spaced out by 3 pixels, so the letters are mushed together. So, and then let's have it so that the font weight is lighter. So we can have it bold. So let me show you bold. Bold looks like this. See that? And then if we say lighter, you see that? It's thinner. So that's what that's doing. Now, let me just add something to background image because we want this to be as readable as possible. So let's just darken the image a little bit. So we're going to add a linear gradient here and have it be RGBA 0, 0, 0, which is the color black, and then 0.1 opacity. Then RGBA, again with the zeros, because we're doing it black again, and 0.3. Oh, I need another parenthesis. Boom. Save that. Go back in here. Refresh. See how the image is a little darker? So now it's easier to read. So now let's add these items to the other sections. So let's go to who we are. So let's have this background image, and this is the photo we'll be using. This too is linked in the description box. We'll have it so the same exact things. Background attachment is fixed. Background position is centered. Background repeat is off or no repeat. And then background size down here is cover. Save all of this. I'm going to give you all a second to fill that in. Okay, so let's see what that made our site look like. Ooh, you see that, y'all? Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So I'm going to add a margin so that there's this little space here. So margin dash top, because we want the margin to be specific to the top of the section, 30px. Now let's look. There we are. See that? Because the Wix site, yeah, each section had its break. Oh, this one didn't. But I like it better with it. We're keeping it. Sorry, y'all. Let's make the text color white. So let's take this out. There. Looks much cleaner. And now let's get to let's see, the bottom sections. And then we'll be done. Crazy, right? Crazy, crazy. So we're going to add an image to each of the individual sections. So we had the work section, dot work. So background image will be this link, the URL, and then background attachment is fixed. Background position is going to be center. Ground position is going to be center. Background repeat, no repeat, and background size is going to be cover. No, not auto, cover. Oops. What that looks like. There, see that? So now let's do the same thing with the other items. So you can really just copy and paste this down. So command copy, command paste. There. The other sections were called social media and visit us. And so all we have to do is change the URL. So that URL is this one. Command copy, command paste. And then the visit us URL is here. You see that? We really just did the exact same thing. So .work, but we copied and pasted it 3 times. And then we just changed the background image. So let's look at our creation. Look at this. Look at us, y'all. Wow. See that? How professional that looks? So now, these are just now little tweaks. So you know how when you hover over something that's clickable, the cursor changes to a pointer or the color changes. So if we go into Wix's site, you see how the color changes to white, and now we have the pointer guy over there. Let's do the same here. Let's change that here. So I like making things like grouped together. So .title h3, so let's say .title hover. We want the style to be this when hovered. So background color, ground color. We want it to be black, but like kind of transparent. So RGBA 000, then like 0.7. Yeah, something like that. Let's see how that looks. Refresh. Wait. Why am I saying black? My goodness. What am I doing? Because it's already black. I meant for this to be here, and then this to now be more white. White is 255, if I recall. And then let's do a 0.7. Let's see ground. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, refresh. See, so it's not like so harsh black now. It's, more toned down. Okay, now let's make sure that the text color changes on the hover so we can still read it. So color black. Cursor is a pointer. Cursor, pointer. Very, very simple. That's one thing I like about CSS. They try to be very simple. Sometimes they don't succeed, I will say that, but they try, so that's appreciated. I don't want the white to be too white. Let's make it 0.5. Refresh. Okay. So now if we start from the top, this is what we have. We scroll, and boom. 1, 2, 3. So before we're done, we're so close. Just going to change a few things here. Specifically, you see how close these two are matched together? Yeah, I want to change that. So go back up here to where we started coding. It was section 1, and these are H2 and H3 of section 1. So let's make it so that the margin top 30. Okay. I'm gonna do a little more, y'all. Let's do 60, and then let's have the H2 have a margin dash top of about 15 px. Boom, boom, boom. Oh my goodness, I misspelled problems. Why didn't you tell me? That's the one thing. Sometimes I want actual dialogue, I definitely want to do a live soon with you all, so we can do this all as a little party. But for now, not yet. But there we have it, everybody. We went from no page at all to this Wix imitation. Isn't that so cool? So cool. Just like this one. Go through. They have videos instead of images. But so excited to have done this with you all. So there we have it, everybody. I hope you all liked this tutorial, and I hope you learned a lot about really how simple things can be with HTML and CSS and what all you can create making a dupe of a Wix site alone. Please let me know what you think. If you'd like to see more videos like this of tutorials and code alongs and things like that, leave a like, because I won't know what you want from me unless you hit that like button. So hit that like button, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. So bye y'all.